Tonight we're going to speak about Hanukah, which is the zechut of Yaakov Avinu and Yosef Hatzadik. Obviously, they're going to be everything connected that we're going to be speaking about. So let's start as follows. If we just take this page, which is basically going to be the introduction page, we're going to be speaking about Chanukah's Keneged Yaakov, Keneged Yosef Hatzadik. The Or HaChaim HaKadosh is going to bring the Zohar HaKadosh, a Geulah from Galut Yavan was in the zechut of Yaakov Avinu, meaning the fact that we were redeemed from Yavan, from the Greeks, was because of Yaakov Avinu. It's also brought down in the Sfarim HaKadoshim that the Nes Pach HaShemen was also Zechut Yaakov Avinu. The fact that they found this Pach HaShemen, you remember we actually going to speak about it. We're going to speak about that this was the one that he went back for the Pachim Ktanim. Right? There was a Shach. Okay, well, we'll speak about it. Besever Megalei Mukot, he also explained that the Koach of Chanukah is the Shoresh of Yosef Hatzadik. We also find that the Inyan of the Seudah and Simchan Chanukah is mirumaz, is hinted in the Seudah that Yosef did for the brothers. Just like that, there will always come out that whenever we have Chanukah, we're always going to be speaking about the parashiot of Yosef Hatzadik. So, what's the connection? What is Yosef Hatzadik with Chanukah? It always comes out. You have Vayeshev, you have Miketz, Vayigash. They're always, you're always there. But why? What's the connection? Bet, number 2. Koach HaKdusha of Yaakov Avinu was Tikkun the Tumat Yavan, which means this is going to be a Pida Maral Miprag. The Yaakov Avinu nitiyached bikoach kedushato, and because of that, there was a Tumah of Yavan, was the Chet of Gilui Rayot, meaning the Greeks were always in their bodies. It was always immorality. It was always, and therefore Yaakov Avinu was the exact opposite. Kochi v'reshitoni mamash, my first tipa, everything was kedusha v'tara. So that was the comparison of one of them, which is the Tikkun. Chanukah is Keneged Yosef Hatzadik, which is the Tzadik Yesod Olam, is the Ashlamat Avodat HaKdusha of Yaakov Avinu, which means he comes and he says the Zechut of Yosef Hatzadik is going to be in the Short Shemei Chanukah, is going to be by the Or HaChaim HaKadosh on the Madriga of Yosef Hatzadik, that he's called Tzadik Yesod Olam. Meaning, if you think about it, none of the tribes even, we do find there's a Gemara, Binyamin Hatzadik, but other than that, you never hear Reuven Hatzadik, Levi Hatzadik, Shimon Hatzadik, right? Yehuda Hatzadik. The only one was Yosef Hatzadik. And even Binyamin, that was with the tribes, it's not really written on him, Binyamin Hatzadik. There's a Gemara that speaks about Binyamin Hatzadik, but it wasn't actually on the tribe of Binyamin, on Sheve Binyamin. It was just on another person named Binyamin. Daled Yaakov Avinu Yosef Hatzadik is Nefesh HaAchat. They're all like one. What does that mean? We're obviously going to have to speak about that. Because he says Yosef Hatzadik, he actually excelled in the Kedusha Elyon, so he actually but he continued and he completed Avodat Kedusha of Yaakov Avinu, and that's why there's the Shoresh of Nes Chanukah to do the Yaakov and Yosef Hatzadik. Yaakov Avinu was Amud Torah, so he says that's number Hey. Shoresh Mesirat Zedim Biyad Oskei Torah, right? That's what we say. We said Zedim Biyad Oskei Toratecha. Yaakov Avinu is Amud Torah. And therefore, the Chashmonaim were able to come and only to become greater than the Greeks, only because of their Esek HaTorah. And now why we understand why the Nes Pach HaShemen is to do with the Shemen that Yaakov Avinu was pouring on top of the stones. When he poured it on top of the stones, we're going to speak about this as well. And according to this, now we understand by Yosef Hatzadik that he says, Utvuach Tevach Ve'achen. What does that mean? The brothers come to visit him. Now they don't know that it's Yosef. So he comes and he says, we're going to slaughter and we're going to prepare. He says, he comes and he says, Yosef Hatzadik was sitting and learning 36 Mesechtot of the Shas. So therefore, he continued with the 36 Nerot of Chanukah. It was one of the questions on the test. How many candles were there? 36. Correct?
My question is, when
we're going to speak about the Pachim Aktanim of Yaakov Avinu, which is basically the Shiflut and Achna'ah. Basically, when a person humbles himself, that goes against the Azut of Yavan. Okay, that's what we're going to explain. And then the last one is basically a shemen that Yaakov Avinu came and he poured, was the Yesod of Avat Hashem Yitbarach, right? That because of that, we are going to be Zocheh to the Kinyanei Torah. So let's go one by one. Let's start tackling it. So on page Aleph, okay? On page Aleph. So we're going to start with the Or HaChaim HaKadosh. That here it says the Or HaChaim HaKadosh brings the Zohar HaKadosh. That the Geulah Geulat Yavan was in the Zechut of Yaakov Avinu. And the Nes of the Pach HaShemen was also because of Yaakov Avinu. So it says over like this. Uvderech Remez. This is in Parashat Tetzaveh. We're going to explain that which is brought down in the Zohar HaChadash. Arba galuyot shel Yisrael. There's going to be 4 exiles that the Jews are going to come by. Kol echad mehem nigalu mimenu bizchut echad. So each one of them was because of one of the zechuyot. Galut Rishon was because of Abraham Avinu alav shalom. The second one was because of Yitzchak Avinu. The third one was Yaakov Avinu. And the fourth one was Moshe Rabbeinu. And that's why, because of basically the fourth one is because of Moshe, we have such a long galut. As long as we're not learning Torah mitzvot the way that we're supposed to, right? So then what happens is that as long as we're not going to learn Torah the way that we're supposed to, right? So therefore what happens is that we have so many batlanim, so we're not going to be redeemed, okay? So now he comes and he says this. What does this mean exactly? So if you look here in the Meoreh Or, it says, right? That's why immediately after the Maaseh Mishkan, they come and they tell us to do the Shemen HaMenorah, because that was going to be a tikkun for the chashash shelo yitzlichu Yisrael dvarav. Now Galut Revi'it is what we're in today. That means basically we had, after the first Bet HaMikdash, right? That was, we were going to have the first galut, then the second galut, and then the third galut. So each galut, one of them was Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. So Yaakov was of the Yavan, which is the third one. It was in the middle of the second Bet HaMikdash, but it was a galut Yavan. So he comes and he says that was going to be because of the zechut of Yaakov Avinu. So it's parallel here, okay? And to do with Moshe Rabbeinu, it says since Moshe Rabbeinu was Mekabel the Torah, and the Torah is called on Torat Moshe, right? Zichru Torat Moshe Avdi. Therefore, right, Moshe is not going to redeem Israel only because of the zechut of the Torah. Rashav v'yetzeh, v'yeshkem Yaakov b'boker, v'yikach et ha'even asher sam ben hashutav v'yasem do mitzvah, v'yisok shemen al rosha. So Yaakov Avinu gets up in the morning, he places the stone by his head, and he comes and makes it into a monument, and he pours oil onto it, right, on the stone. So says, right, the Yama Talmud, Matzati b'sefer Birkat Shmuel shekda b'shem Rav Shach Zatzal, right, Rav Shach ala Torah. This is not Rav Shach, right? We're talking about the Shach, which is on the Shulchan Aruch. Yeah, so the Shach says, "Oto shemen shiyatzak Yaakov al heaven, nitkala lo oto apach." That was the pach hashemen. V'ur'eh kol hanisim shenasu bahem. Look how many miracles happened with this pach hashemen. He says, "Zehu hashemen shenimshach bo kol haklimim." All the utensils of the Bet HaMikdash were anointed with this oil. Uvon imshechu kol hamelachim. Every king became anointed with this oil. And this was the Kad Hashemen of Eliyahu Navi. And that was the Pach, which was also revealed to the Bnei Chashmonaim. Meaning when Eliyahu Navi did all the miracles, you know, the Pach Hashem, everything that we're talking about, every miracle, always was with what? The Pach Hashem, meaning David HaMelech anointed this oil. Yaakov, everything was with this Pach Hashem. This was this famous Pach Hashem. Okay?
Is it, they want to say that it was the same Pach?
So what does it mean that Yaakov Avinu stayed by himself and he started fighting until the Shachar? He forgot small pachim, and that's why he went back to them. The Tzedal Derech comes and he says, Rashi Dibur Vavivater Yaakov Shachach pachim ktanim v'chazar alehem Katav Rav Agadol Marshal Shachach pachim ktanim, and therefore it says Vayaver kol ashelo, he passed everything. So what does it mean by Yivater? What does it mean? Really, be'emet, they weren't chashuv at all. Just like the Gemara says, it was mamash nothing. Right? Gabe nezek. What does nezek talk about? Pachim ktanim, small jugs. That means it's not even worth anything. So afal pi, even though they weren't worth anything, mikomakom, right? Meshalem, you still have to pay. Inam yor, why does it say pachim ktanim? Because we found that by Kadosh Baruch Hu, he told Yaakov Avinu, Atam asarta nefshecha al pach katan. Right, Bishvili, you went and you gave over your entire life for a small jug for me. I'm also going to give them a small jug. When is that? For the Chashmonaim. That means the miracle of the Chashmonaim happened because you came and you gave up your life, as if say, for my pachim ktanim. So he says, but where do we see that Yaakov Avinu gave himself up for pachatan? So he says, Vayaver kol shelo. So why did he say by himself? Pachatan shel shemen sheyad rotzeh lenasech al gabei hamitzvah bebetel. Meaning Yaakov Avinu wanted to use this oil on the matzeva in Betel. And he forgot. So what did he do? He gave up himself in order to go and get that Pach Hashem. The fact that he gave up his life, he masar nafsho, to get this oil to make a monument for Hashem. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you do it for me, I'm going to do it for your children. When am I going to do it for your children? Chashmonaim. אלא של הקדוש ברוך הוא לנסח. It wasn't his. If it was his, he could say kapara. It wasn't his. He already said this is to use for the mizbeach. This is used for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So this is used for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's not mine. It belongs to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He went back to get it for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's what the Tzedal Derech comes and he says. Okay?
Who was Tzedal Derech?
It says on top, Rabbi Yisachar Ber Eilenberg, the Tzedal Derech, Parashat Vayishlach. Right? The next one is also going to be a very interesting one, the Megaleh Mukot. This is...
that's a Kabbalist.
Yes, Rabbi Natan Shapira. Megaleh Mukot Parashat Ve'et Hanan. He says, Ulfi Yerovam, right? Yerovam ben Nevat yatsa min Yosef. Lachen Antiochos, shehu begematria Yosef, shaya melech Yavan, shu gam ken begematria Yosef. That means if you take Antiochos, Antiochos is the same numerical value as Yosef. Yosef, you have 80 and 60 is 140. Yod is 10 and 150, 156. Take Antiochos, you're going to have the exact same thing. You have Aleph and Nun, that's 51. Tet is 9, so 60. Yod is 70. Vav is 6, 76. Kaf is 86. 86 and 60, 146. Exact same as Yosef. Also, Melech Yavan. Melech Yavan. Melech, you have, right? You've got 70, you've got 90. And then Yavan, you have 65. 65 and 90. Yeah? Did I do it correctly? One more time? 40, 30, 30. Yes. So 151, we said 156 or 155 is the same thing. Shu gam ken matya Yosef. Amar kitvu al keren ashor. En lachem chelek Elokei Yisrael. she'az nitorer chet Yerovam. שיצא מן יוסף שנקרא שור, שהביא קרן לעולם, שהוא סוד הקליפות רביעית נוגה, ראשי תיבות קרן, בסוד ולרשעים אל תרימו קרן. What does that mean? Basically, he comes and he says, what does it mean that they had the shore? The shore was Yerovam ben Nevat came from Yosef, and Yerovam put the Egel HaZahavs, he put shores on the outside of Yerushalayim going up, so that way they don't go to the Bet HaMikdash, they go and they do Egels. So because of that, he comes and he says that basically what happened was Kitvu al Keren Ashor, they wanted to arouse the Avera of Yerovam ben Nevat. Yerovam ben Nevat was way before. Remember that during the beginning of the first Bet HaMikdash. Shlomo built the first Bet HaMikdash. His son Rehovam and Yerovam were at the same time. So we're talking about the first temple towards the first Bet HaMikdash. This is towards the last 200 years of the second Bet HaMikdash. So imagine what's going on. They wanted to arouse the sin of the shore of Yerovam ben Nevat that he came from Yosef. So therefore, that's why Antiochus is the gematria of Yosef, and also Melech Yavan is the gematria of Yosef. So it says Kitvu al Keren Ashor. Okay, now comes, this is now the Mevaser Tov, and he comes and he says like this: V'chen katav Adoni Aviyezeh b'Sefer HaKatam Divrei Bina v'zeh Lashon Kodsho Ita b'Sfarim HaKadoshim sheYosef gematria Melech Yavan v'akvara mizeh shehu she'al yedei bechinat Yosef Tzadik Yesod Olam. When you come and you take the power of Yosef Hatzadik, you're able to get rid of the Malchut Yavan Rasha. So he says, Harei, behold, Yosef Hatzadik was Kenegdo, was Mamash the Kenegdo, was the opposite, right, of Melech Yavan and Antiochus Rasha. And all the koach that the Chashmonaim had, Keneged the Yevarim and Antiochus, was because of the koach of Yosef Hatzadik. And we already explained that the Shloshet HaRegalim, Yastu v'Shish L'Avot HaKadoshim HaMitzav Yaakov, meaning every single one of the Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot was because of one of the Avot HaKadoshim. Just like the Tur brings out. I've heard from my brother Rabbi Yehuda, Tam Ladavar, the Moadim are parallel to the Shlosha Avot. Pesach was Avraham Avinu, because it says Lu Shiva Siyugot. That's Pesach. Shavuot was Keneged Yitzchak, but Tkiyat Shofar of Matan Torah was a Shofar with Elol Shel Yitzchak. Sukkot was because of Yaakov Avinu, because it says Miknei Osa Sukkot. Yudbet Rashi Chodshei Hashanah, which are also called Moadim, or Keneged Yudbet Shvatim. Uchshechatu Ba'egel, so means the 12 months is because of the 12 tribes. So he says, when they sinned in the Egel, natlu mehem v'natlu neshotehem lezecher shelo yivot zachet. So it was taken away from them and it was given to their wives. That's why there's a minhag that the women don't work on Rosh Chodesh. The women, all these things are because of the Rosh Chodesh. V'chag Hanukah is the yisod of Yosef Hatzadik. Shemikoach avodato v'amidato v'nisiyot sheba'olav. Because he withstood his trials with the wife of Potiphar, it became a koach and hashpa'ah of Yom Tov Chanukah for generations. And just like in that generation, the Chashmonim, they won because of a koach of Yosef, that was machriya, it came and it's humbled the king of Yavan also for generations. The hashpa'at of the light of the Chanukiah comes from Yosef Hatzadik, and therefore we have to understand what exactly is the greatness of his hashpa'ah. Okay? The same thing happens with Parashat Miketz. Incredible stuff until now, yeah? Vayad Yosef itam Binyamin. What does that mean? So this is now Rav Yoshua, right? Boaz, he says, Shiltei Giburim. He comes and he says, Utvoach tevach ve'achen, hachet, right? Mitevach. What does that mean? That teva me'achen hemotiyot Chanukah. Meaning if you take ve'achen, right, move them around, it becomes Chanukah. Okay? And now he comes and he says, right, when you're going to come and you take...
How are you going to get, you're missing the chet.
Which one? Of the...
Ve'achen.
So he says, from the Tevach and the word Ve'achen are Otiyot Chanukah. And it's right beside the Seudah that we do on Chanukah. Now the word Utvoach Tevach is Gematria of 44. Because that's the Nerot. Remember, we have 36 candles, but with the Shamash every single night, we have 44 candles. So therefore, it's the same numerical value, right, of Utvoach Tevach is the Gematria of 44, because we're going to be having Seudot. So Utvoach Tevach Ve'achen, prepare yourselves for what? For Chanukah. Okay, the Rav Tzadok HaKohen Lublin in the Pri Tzadik on the left side, he comes and he says, the Parashiot Vayeshev Miketz Vayigash, that always speak about Yosef Hatzadik, and these are the Parashiot that always follow Chanukah, whether it's right before it, right afterwards, in the middle of it, for sure there's a Shayachut. V'hainu d'chilat Chanukah chalifamim Parasha Vayeshev, and Sof Chanukah usually is in Parasha Vayigash, and he says, because Chanukah has a Shayachut to these Parashiot. So he says, why? Because in Parasha Vayeshev, the entire Parasha is talking about Bechinat Tzadik Yesod Olam of Yosef Hatzadik. And in this Parasha, it starts talking about Yosef Hatzadik and the way of his midot and his gvura and how he won against the Yetzer Hara. That he became a gibor, that he became a mighty person conquering his Yetzer Hara. Parashat Miketz, it's coming and saying how he went out of the darkness to become the king, out of jail to become king. Parashat Vayigash, all the Shivatim and the Shivim Nefesh, they're all coming by Chalkel Yosef Ushlemu Midato. Shezachal Liot Chilkel V'Liot Merkava Lemidat HaTzadik. What does that mean? We have to remember that the midah of Yosef Hatzadik is not only Tzadik Yesod Olam. He became a Mechalkel. He became the Parnasah, the one that's Parnasah. That's why they always speak about the one that he goes always with the Zunah and everything. They lose the Parnasah. But if you're Shomer al Brit, right, then that's a Segula for Parnasah. Why is Segula? The entire thing of also of Chanukah. Segula for Parnasah, the 8th day. Remind me, we'll speak about it also. The 8th day. Segula of Parnasah. Okay, next. The Koach HaKedusha, we're on page, right? Gimel. So the Koach HaKedusha of Yaakov Avinu is Tikun Letumat Yavan. Now we're going to explain. The Midrash. Okay, and he comes and he says this. This is Rabbi, the Ner Mitzvah. This is Maral Miprag. Midrash Even, ze Yaakov. Dichtiv, Misham Lo Even Yisrael. Right? ופירוש זה, כי לגודל הכוח שיש לדל מלכויות אלו, שנתן השם יברח לא לדל מלכויות כוח אדם, שלאדם נתן השם יברח לא הממשלה, כמו שהתבהר, ולא היה ביטול לכוח זה רק על ידי יעקב, שכוחו נקרא כוח אבן. Meaning, basically, each one of these, they were given a certain strength, each one of these kingdoms, as they say. Now, what happens is, he comes and he says, it was only because that Yaakov Avinu had the power of a stone that he was able to uproot all these kingdoms. So he says, "V'davar ze inyan amok meod b'ma shekoach Yaakov nikra koach heaven, ki Yaakov yesh lo koach kadosh nivdal," because he was separated. Just like we explained in another place, ki Yaakov hu hakadosh bifrat, כמו שכתוב בכל מקום, לכן כתיב והקדישו את קדוש יעקב, ואין להאריך כאן. So here, if you see in the bottom 382, you have here, יסוד נפוץ בספרי מהר"ל, כגון תפארת ישראל, הקדושה הוא בפרט יעקב. Right? Everything is the koach of Yaakov Avinu. כי מעלת יעקב is מעלה נפרדת ומיוחדת מאוד. Right? So he says, Shaya Kadosh v'nivdal mikol yinei olam. He was completely separated from this world. Okay? And that's why he says, Ata Kadosh v'shimcha Kadosh is Yaakov Avinu. Meaning that in the Amidah, the first beracha, Magen Avot, is Chesed. Right? Zocher Chastei Avot, everything is Chesed. So that's Avraham Avinu. The second one, Yitzchak, is Gvura, Tchiyat HaMetim. He died, he was revived. Kedusha is always Yaakov Avinu. Because Yaakov Avinu was completely separated and segregated. And therefore, that's why it says here, Yaakov ya Kadosh v'nivdal biyoter mikol ha'avot. He was holier than all the other avot. That's why he's also called the Bechir Avot. Okay? So therefore, this is the concept of Bechir Avot. By the way, where else do you see the concept of Yaakov with the Evan? Not only just by the stones, by his head. Also, there was another place also. He picked up the stone to give to drink. You remember? So there also we have the exact same thing. So it's all connected, this concept of the stone, that Yaakov Avinu had the power of removing everything they had over there. So now he comes and he says like this, the Sfat Emet, more of Gur, he comes and he says, that means like this. He comes and he says this. We have 4 nations. Remember, you have Galut, right? We have whether it's going to be the Edom, which is the last one that we're in until today. We have Yavan, we have Galut Bavel, right? And we have the Galut. So therefore he comes and he says this. The 4 Malchuyot, each one of them had a different strength. So he comes and he says like this. Daled Malchuyot, hem bechinat avodah zara gilui l'shuchut damim. Okay, that's what he says. Okay, so he comes and he says now like this. Lashon hara is shakul keneged kulam. V'lachen gimel avot amdu al gimel avrot shem shukulin kol haTorah chayivin. So therefore, basically, each one of the forefathers had to fix one of these and to go completely to do mesirut nefesh aleim. So Yaakov Avinu, alav shalom, kolel gimel avot, he's, everyone together. Avar kol gimel atzarot haele. He had all 3 of them on him. V'utzrach liot im Lavan shu bechinat avodah zara. He had to be with Lavan, just like he said, nichashi trafim. Ve'esav hu shofech tamim. Esav was to do with the murder. Ve'tzarat dina is gilui arayot. Umul ze haya gimel malchuyot. So therefore, you had the gimel malchuyot. Bavel was avodah zara. That's why Babylonia, everything with Nebuchadnezzar was always avodah zara. Right? Salma didava. Right? Madai was shfichut damim. Lashmidu larog labed et kol hayudim. That was by Haman and Rasha. Yavan is gilui arayot, as we already mentioned. And Malchut HaRevi'it is lashon hara. And sinat chinam, which is keneged kulam. So therefore he comes and he says like this. He says, sheshakul keneged gimel averot, k'mo shamru chazal. V'lachen Edom, that's why Edom is worse than all the gimel malchuyot. The shvatim with Yosef, right, was a preparation for this galut. And therefore you have a remez of lashon hara and sinat chinam. Just like it says, כשרצית נתתם ליבם לשנוא. כלומר שהיה הכל מכוון בגזירת עליון. So everything was there in order to have the galut. So here you have it, that each one, that means Yaakov Avinu had to have all 3 in order that he was the preparation to be redeemed, right, of all these, of the 3. Okay? Now it comes and he says like this. HaKoach of Yaakov Avinu was Koach HaKdusha. This is the Pninei Rabbeinu Or HaChaim HaKadosh and Chanuka. So it says like this. Pninei. In order to understand the Koach HaMiyuchad that Yosef Hatzadik got from Yaakov Avinu, we have to understand what was the Koach of Yaakov Avinu. Now I'm on page Dalet. Okay, so on page Dalet on the top. We have to understand what is the Koach of Yaakov Avinu in order to understand what is the Koach of Yosef Hatzadik. Umasbir Ma'aral. So explains the Ma'aral. Yaakov Avinu nityacher b'yan kedushato. He was always with himself with his kedusha. Uchmo shekatav b'torah reshitoni. That's why he says reshitoni. V'katav Ma'aral. Ki Yaakov yesh lo koach nivdal. He was always segregated. Ki Yaakov hu hakadosh. כמו שידוע בכל מקום, הוא לקח לי והקדישו את קדוש יעקב. ולכן מידת הזאת של יעקב אבינו was מידת האמת. As we say, תתן אמת ליעקב. כי ברית הלשון והמאור תלויים קשורים זה בזה. Because the ברית of the לשון, and also that it's all תלוי זה בזה. ולכן it's also dependent one upon the other. And therefore, after that Yaakov was with שרו של עשיו, that he השתדל תמיד להכשיל את ישראל בני הקדושה הללו, right? כנודע במלחמת עמלק, right? Zacha Yaakov likareh b'shem Yisrael. That's why he was because of the Kedusha Elionah. That means he tried to get him. Did you realize where did the Malach try to get Yaakov? On the thigh area. Why over there? He was always trying to get the Bnei Yisrael to sin with Gilui Arayot. And therefore, when Yaakov Avinu, he overpowered him, that he didn't let him, so therefore he became Yisrael. So now he says like this. The Zohar HaKadosh speaks about Avodat Yaakov Avinu. The Zohar is brought down. Shebecheto shel Adam HaRishon. You had all the Shloshet Avarot Chamerot of the 3 capital cardinal sins, right? Idol worshipper, murder, and adultery. So therefore, we have to come. The Avot HaKadoshim had to fix it. The Zohar HaKadosh explains that Avraham Avinu tikem bechinat cheto shebeved avodah zarah. Why? He smashed all the avodah zarah. He fixed all the concept of avodah zarah. Yitzchak Avinu fixed the concept of shlichut damim of the Rishon. Why? Because he was the one that was actually as if killed. So he fixed the concept of death or murder. Yaakov Avinu was the one that fixed the Gilui Arayot. Okay, this is also brought down in the Megaleh Melkot. Now he comes and he continues. Harei Mevuar, we're in the middle column, right, in Chanuka. Harei Mevuar Medivrei HaZohar. The Yaakov Avinu, he perfected himself. He excelled in the Koach HaKedusha, and therefore he was able to fix the Pgam of Gilui Arayot. In the Miluim, he actually explains the Pirush Milu Omer Maral. He comes and he says, Al Megillat Esther. Also, we find other places where it says, right, Sefer Asara Ma'amaro L'Marama Mifano Mamar Tikun Adin. Right, also in the Megaleh Melkot. So you see that there's a few places where they speak about this concept. Now he comes and he says like this. The Sfat Emet explains the Daled Malchuyot, the four, what we call the four nations, right? That we were under them, we were subjugated to them, are also keneged these four different things. And therefore the Avot HaKadoshim, they had to fix them. So he comes and he says like this. He says that Bavel was neged shfichut damim, right? And so the Avodah Zarah, Madai was the murder, and he comes and he says Malchut Madai was the murder, and he says over here Lashmil Larog Labed. Malchut Yavan was the Gilui Rayot. Malchut Revit was because of Lashon Hara. That's why we're still here. So it comes out from the Sfat Emet that Galut Yavan was neged Gilui Rayot. That was Koch HaTumav Yavan. So he comes and he says, so that's why he comes and he says, right, as follows. He comes and he says something incredible. Shoresh Koach Yavan Novea Mimazal Shor. The power of Yavan, of the Greeks, comes from the shore. The ox is one of the mazalot, correct? So one of the mazalot is the shore. The shore shows you on the lust, on desires. Right? He comes and he says, he explains it even more. So he wants to say that that's why it was the tavot, the desires, they come from the ox. Now we understand the Klal Yisrael, they were redeemed because of Yaakov Avinu, right? So he comes and he says, so according to this, now we understand that if Yaakov Avinu, he perfected himself in Kedusha, so now we understand what happened, that it had to be with Yosef Hatzadik. So now we continue on page 5. So Chanukah keneged Yosef Hatzadik, Mesechet Yomah, Daf Lamelchet Amubet, says the Gemara in Yomah, says V'tzadik Yesod Olam. What exactly are we referring to? Tzadik Yesod Olam. We're talking about that Tzadik Yesod Olam. The Tzadik is Mekayim Kol HaOlam Kulo. Right? That's what he comes and he says over here. So now let's see the psukim. Listen to this. Right? What does it mean over here? Yaakov comes and he says, we're talking about the Balech Chitzim, who was the wife of Potiphar, that she came and she wanted, right, to throw the arrows, as if to say, at Yosef Hatzadik. Now he comes and he says like this, Pirush, Hashem helped him. Al derech omro, Hashem will not help him fall. And therefore he came and he gave him the strength. Misham lo even Israel. Even ma'asu abonim. Yosef, be'emtzaut tzidko shemar brit kodesh. The fact that Yosef Hatzadik watched over his brit kodesh, zacha be'even harosha, he was zoche in the even harosha, and that's the tzaddik yesod olam. The yesodot are the avanim, the stones are the foundations of everything. And therefore he became ro'eh even Israel. And now you're going to understand exactly what happened. So here in the Meoreh Or, he says, tzaddik yesod olam, shakol omed alav. And that's what it says, ro'eh even Israel. It's a remez, even ma'asu abonim hayta lerosh pinah. That just like a person became a pinot abayit, bavanim gedolov yofot, you always make the foundations of the house with beautiful big stones in order to make the even harosha, so too, he was the foundation of everything. So now it says in Parashat Kedoshim, Kedoshim to you. The Or HaChaim HaKadosh comes and he says, right, what does that mean? What's the connection between Kedoshim to you and Ishimo ve'aviv tirau? So he comes and he says, what's the reasoning why they're close together? So he says, Lirmoz, that you have to be gadel l'arayot. You always have to place a border for arayot, for immorality. Just like where it says, Yaakov, that Yosef Hatzadik was protected himself from Potiphar. So he says, why? Because the kedusha of the father will go inside of the son. And that's why Yosef Hatzadik, when he was going to sin, he saw the dmut, the yokno of his father. Because that's what was protecting him. So he says, the Or HaChaim HaKadosh in Parashat V'etchanan, Hagam shitaveh adam lechol ulehon. Even if a person's going to have enjoyment, he has a desire. He wants food or he wants money. Lo yeh kol kach otzem arevut hagam shanefesh. He's not going to get, even though you want it. Yachol adam limshol berucho limno atzmo me'adavar benakel. He wants to come and he wants to, right? He wants to save himself from something easily. Ma she'en ken keshenichnas libo chevdat halev yitaveh liisha yafa. But all of a sudden he's going to desire a beautiful woman. And all of a sudden he wants it so much. And he's going to control himself. Look how much was Yosef Hatzadik had to push himself, right? Against, for the wife of Potiphar. So let's see what it says over here. Now we're going to go. He comes and he says, why is it Yaakov Avinu took Yosef? He was always out of the Shvatim. He wasn't part of them. Why? They weren't part of the Shvatim. Right? Just like we saw by Ephraim and Manasseh, they were all part of it. Why did he take them out? So he comes and he saes in the middle paragraph, what does that mean? He says, פשט הדברים יגיד של יעקב הוא אומר שמנו יוצאו לא מבניו, אלא יש אדם אמרם כי יוסף הוא בחינת נפש יעקב. And that was the remez, אלה תולדות יעקב, יוסף. והוא אומרו בני יעקב ויוסף. ורמזו חכמי האמת כי הוא בחינת מילוי הוו, שהמילוי כאות עצמו. Sometimes you have the ot vav, right, that you're going to have. Here you have it in the Kavzayin explains. כשראה יעקב שלא נולדו לו עוד בנים, הבין שאין כוונת הנבואה לבני שאר בניו, אלא לבני יוסף, כיוון שיעקב ויוסף הם נפש אחת. He understood that Yosef was a continuation of him. Because Yosef was a בחינת יעקב, ומדרגת אב לשבטים נקרא. Which means, we always think that Yosef was just stam. Yosef באמת was like the same nefesh of his father. That's why Nafshok, Shem, and Nashok, they were so connected. Because באמת, they were one. And therefore, even though he came and he said, afterwards, that you're going to have children afterwards, he didn't have any more children afterwards. What's going on? What does it mean? What does that mean? Because he said, no. He understood that really באמת, the two children, they were like his. And that's what it says over here, Bnei Yaakov Yosef, just like it says, Keshamar Shem Yaakov, Shetzim Ben Od Banim, Zi Yaakov, Zi Yosef. So therefore he comes and he says, Shnei Banecha Noledim Lecha, Lihem, they're mine. What does it mean? He comes and he tells Yosef Hatzadik, the two children that you had in Mitzrayim, they're mine, Lihem. Pirush, Madregat Bnei Yaakov, they're not grandchildren, they're his children. And that's why he says, Ki Reuven v'Shimon Yuli. They're like Reuven and Shimon. Mamash, they're like Reuven and Shimon. So that's why we're saying, because really Yosef Hatzadik was in the same madriga as the father. It was mamash, it was like the same nefesh. And that's why they became, I told you this already once. You remember? That Ki Reuven and Shimon is the same gematria of Ephraim and Manasseh.
Last week.
We spoke about it, yeah. 100%. And then he says that the ot vav of the milui is also called the same thing. That's why he says, like, for example, when you have Yaakov, even though it does have a vav or it doesn't have a vav, it's like the same thing. Okay, next. Parashat Vayechi. ויקרבו ימי ישראל למות ויקרא לבנו יוסף ולא מיוצאת אחרי מעיניך סידנה יחד אחרי יחיו וסידי עוד נכסים בקרבים ממצרים. What does that mean exactly? So it says over here, Dorchaim HaKadosh comes and he says, ותמצא שאמרו ז"ל כי יוסף, I'm on 6 Gimel. 6, but in the Gimel. On Dorchaim HaKadosh. So he comes and he says, בחינת יוסף הוא בחינת וו מילוי וו. What does that mean? Yaakov was bechina nefesh achat. That's what he says over here. Okay, so he comes and he says, "The whole diuknad Yosef, everything that happened to you, Yaakov happened to Yosef. They had the exact same mazal, if you realize, right? The exact same mazal, everything that happened. That's what it means. That it's like, the milui is the same with it or without it. Okay, and that's what it says. Yaakov Yosef is the same yisod. So now he comes and he tells him, "Don't bury me in Mitzrayim." So he says, "Why don't bury me in Mitzrayim?" Look in the underlines. Ki Yaakov Yosef hayu bechina nefesh achat. הוא סוד וו מלאה שיש לה בית וווים ולא יתפרדו. When you have a vav, how do you spell vav? When you spell vav, technically speaking, there's a few ways how to spell vav. You could do vav, vav aleph vav. You could do vav, vav yod vav. You could do vav, vav, vav.
Vav yud vav?
Yeah, you could also do vav, vav yud vav. Right? So here he says it's like 2 vavs. Right? שיש לה בית vavim, that it has 2 vavs, ולא יתפרדו, and you cannot separate them. Right? So he comes and he says, what does that mean? Yosef is bichinat vav milui vav, right? That's what he's going to say. That the milui is like the same ot, it's the same letter, and therefore he says, "Valsher alken chashi Yaakov shechashi Yosef lo yitzei Yosef yipremenu gam moto." He thought that when he passed away, Yaakov thought that maybe he doesn't want to take him to Eretz Yisrael because Yosef wanted to be with Yaakov even after he passed away. Since they were the same nefesh achat, Yaakov thought, I have to tell Yosef to take me to take me right away to Eretz Yisrael. Why? Because Yosef didn't want to depart from Yaakov, even after he died. He wanted to still be beside him. So therefore he comes and he tells him, no. take me up to Eretz Yisrael. Don't leave me Mitzrayim. You have to make sure that you take me up, right? Because if not, he would have left him there in order that he could still be together with him as long as he can until he dies. And then you take everybody up. Okay, that's what he comes and he explains. Okay?
¿Dónde está enterrado Yosef?
Yosef is in Shechem. Page 9. Okay, page 9 says, Pninei Or HaChaim HaKadosh. Yosef Hatzadik continued, and he finished the Avodah of Yaakov Avinu. V'ineh, when we're going to understand the Avodah of Yosef Hatzadik, we're going to see in the Sfarim HaKadoshim that Yosef Hatzadik, he continued the Avodah of Yaakov Avinu to do with Kiddusha. And this is what the Or HaChaim HaKadosh says. That Yaakov Avinu, that Yosef hu bechinat nefesh Yaakov. And that's why it says, El Tolot Yaakov is Yosef. And that's why it says, Bnei Yaakov Yosef Sela. It's a pasuk in Tehillim. I mean, it's mashma, it's the same children of Yaakov and Yosef. V'ramzu chachmei haemet. Ki hu, it's Yosef, is bechinat aminui vav, of Yaakov bechinat tiferet. Haramuz beod vav, uchmo shekatvu, Or HaChaim HaKadosh. Shaminui keot atzmo. V'chen davar Or HaChaim HaKadosh, ki Yaakov Yosef hu bechinat nefesh achat. They're the same thing, of the vav. Yosef is the same nefesh with Yaakov Avinu. And therefore the Sfat Emet comes and he says, the Avot, they fixed the Chet of Adam Rishon, and Yosef was after the Bechinat Yaakov Avinu. Just like it says, Elo Toldut Yaakov, Yosef. Right? That means just like Yaakov Avinu worked to fix the Chet of Gilui Arayot of Adam Rishon, so too did Yosef Hatzadik, the exact same thing. Just like it says over there, Elo Toldut Yaakov Yosef, the same thing. Now he comes and he says, so too was Yosef Hatzadik. And that's why it's called Tzadik Yesod Olam. Okay? So he comes and he says like this. He says, so now we're doing the Sikum. Okay? This is like the, how do you call this? The summary. Okay? So he says like this. That according to Yosef, since Yosef was Bechina Nefesh Achat with Yaakov Avinu, so therefore he was perfecting himself in this concept, and that's why he had help to stand against the wife of Potiphar, right? Just like the Gemara actually says, and all the other nisiyot that he had in Mitzrayim. So he says, he was zocheh to acquire this Kiddusha of Even Yisrael, which means, do you realize that it was only Demut Yokno that he had this extra help, right? Because of Yaakov Avinu. So now he comes and he says like this. He says, what does that mean that they say that also in Chanukah is because of this? So he says, now we understand what happens on the Chanuka. Because the Chashmonaim, they only were able to conquer because of this. What is Yavan? Yavan is Choshech. Right? Choshech zu Yavan. So he says, the Mekor and the Shoresh of the Koach HaTumah Malchot Yavan was because of Tumat Gilui Arayot. And that's why he comes and he says, the Megaleh Mukot, they come and they say, right, that was the Koach of Yisrael to fight against them was only Gilui Arayot. So that's why Yosef Hatzadik, that he was the Koach of Rachel Imenu, Yaakov Avinu, that from Rachel Imenu, Yosef had this koach, so therefore he had to illuminate the darkness. So from Yaakov Avinu, he accepted this koach, lidgaber al nisyonot of Gilui Arayot, and therefore they say, the Megaleh Mukot and everything, they say that was the koach that gave them to remove the darkness and the tumah of the Yevanim and to reveal it. And that's why it says, Geulat Yisrael Gelut Yevan Aseh Ben Zilkucho of Yosef Hatzadik. That's what the Or HaChaim HaKadosh Megaleh Mukot, they actually say. Page 8. Another explanation to do with the Pach HaShemen. So listen to this. This is Rabbi Yerucham Elshin. He comes and he says like this. Yerach L'Moadim. He comes and he says, Ita bekadmonim. Ve'viu, right, Besefer Kuntras B'nei Chanukah. Right? Is Yom Tov Chanukah u'keneged Yaakov Avinu. And it's brought on in Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer Midrash Rabbah Bereshit. Yaakov Avinu, he went and he poured oil on the stones. Hashasam and Hashotav.
Why they call it Yom Tov?
Because it's a Yom Tov. Chanukah, do you know some people actually say Yom Tov Sameach? You know that? Thing is, if I remember correctly, I think it's even a Taz that he brings it down. That it's like mamash like a Yom Tov. Right? Vayaz shemen shiarad min hashamayim benes. And it was mamash shemen, the oil that was coming down as a miracle. And the Sefer Yama Talmud Masechet Babakama Bakdama Yavi B'Sefer Bekat Shmuel, the name of the Shach, that was the Pach that went to Yaakov Avinu. It was the same Pach that was revealed in the Nes Chanukah. And look, all the Mekorot, She Yom Tov Chanukah is Shayach to Yaakov Avinu. Okay, now he comes and he says, just like, by the way, the concept of Yom Tov is like, again, it's not Yom Tov that it's a Sur Melacha, but it's a Yom Tov in itself, where you do full Hallel. Even Purim is a Yom Tov. The only thing is there we don't do the Hallel because either the Kriyat Megillah is the Hallel or it was, other things as well.
Yeah, they were mentioning there that the Seudah and the Seudah
Yeah. Now it says Galut Yavam was Keneged the Torah, and Yaakov Avinu was Amud Torah. Uvipshuto yesh lefresh. We wanted to explain that the Ikar Kavanah of the Greeks was to mean vatel the Torah from Israel. Just like it says, Keshamda lehem malchut v'nashah lashkicham toratecha. They wanted to make us forget the Torah, and they were one. Why? Because of the chizuk of the Torah. Kenegdam. Kemo she'amarnu, kemo she'omrim. Also, we say vezedim biados ketoratecha. Koach HaTorah was that which stood against the Yevanim. And that's why it was mushrash b'hem mikochosh Yaakov Avinu, which was Amud Torah ba'olam keyadua. Just like it says, Yaakov ishtam yoshev ha'olim. And therefore, we understand why Yaakov Avinu was miuchad keneged galut Yavan and Yom Tov Hanukah. More than that, לבסוף זכו ישראל לנצח דברים להחזיר את עבודה מנורה והשפעתה במקומה. Just like we know, והחזירם הכהנים לבוריים, right? Or we brought them to do their work back. Now remember, right? The menorah is a semel of the Torah also. The menorah is also the Torah. Kiner mitzvah v'Torah or. Right? So he comes and he says, right? ונראה לבאר בזה דבר נפלא מאוד, ששורש כל הניצחון היה במציאת פח הקטן, that's how they brought the order Torah and the order shpat v'pula shel Torah, was בזכות המילוט והיגיעה ויעקב אבינו. איש שם יושב ועולים. And therefore, before when we brought down the entire concept of the shach, he comes and he says, now we understand the shemen hazeh, bifrat naseh hanes, ledorov, this shemen was the cause of miracles in the future during the time of Chanukah. Because it's written, ki b'makli avarti et hayaden hazeh. I passed with my makel. I didn't have no money, no gold, no cattle. I only had my makel. I only had my staff. Just like Rashi says. Because Eliphaz came running after him to kill him. Since Eliphaz grew up with Yitzchak and Yaakov, so he says, what am I supposed to do? I have to do what my father tells him. So he gave him all his money. So the Mepharshim says, how did Yaakov Avinu have shemen? He didn't have anything. It says, it was in the morning. He took shemen and rosha. So the Sefer Paneach Raza comes and he says, this is also brought down in Pirush Tosot Shalom. He took shemen and rosha. Eliphaz, he took everything from him. How did he have shemen? וישומר דבמקלו נשאל לו. כי דכתיב כי במקלי. והוא היה חלול. You know what the kli was? Wow. It was inside of the makel. Inside the makel was hollow. So inside he had the oil. So therefore he comes and he says that he always used to bring it to him with oil in order to light, to learn Torah. Meaning you always needed to learn Torah. How does he get oil to light a candle? He has the oil in his staff. So that's why the oil was always inside of this. And that's why Yaakov took with him the shemen b'maklo lechol makom, everywhere, in order to be able to learn at night times the Torah Kedosha. Right, page 9.
Where is that from? Where is that?
He brings this down from the Pirush Tosfot Shalom on the Torah. Right, where it says Vayitzok shemen al rosha. Right there, there's Tosfot. Right?
I don't see where.
So page 9 it says it comes out according to this that the shemen that Yaakov Avinu used was the shemen that he used to learn all the night times. But according to what we just learned, it makes sense because they went against they went against our Torah, and therefore they came and they contaminated all the oils that they purposely wanted to go against all the oils. So therefore they found the pach shel shemen that Yaakov Avinu used every single night. And that's what they used the menorah, and they brought back the koach of the Torah Shebal Peh to Israel. So it comes out that the koach of the Shemen Yaakov Avinu was what made them come and be able to go against them. Now this is Rav Moshe Teitelbaum. He comes and he says, listen to what he says here. Utvoach tevach. He comes and he says like this. Utvoach tevach v'chem midrashot chatam sofer etik shel shiltei hagorim. 9b, 9bet. Right? Utvoach tevach v'chem. He says midrashot chatam sofer. He brings the shiltei hagiborim. Ot chet mitevach. V'tevat ve'achen is Chanuka. V'yeter otiyot, and the rest of the letters, which is v'tevach tav, k'material lamed vav, k'mispar nerot, 36 candles. V'kashe, what does Chanuka have to do with this? So he says, B'nei Yisascha brings down in the Rebbe Kadosh Pinchas Mikaritz that there's 36 candles connected 36 masechtot in the Shas. וכתב בבלטוני מפסוק וישראל אהב את יוסף מכל בניו, כיוון זקונים הוא לו, זקנים, נוטריקון, זרעים קודשים, נשים, ישועות, מועד. Right, these are the shisha sidra mishnah. וידוע מספרי הקודש, right, שנס חנוכה was because of Yosef Hatzadik. וסימנך מלך יוון, כמטריה יוסף, שכוח חידושתו הכניע קליפה מלך יוון. That means because of the Yosef Hatzadik, they were able to annul מלך יוון. המשיך ישוע, ומעתה ישומע, כי על ידי שיוסף הצדיק יושב שונה, and since he was learning 36 מסכתות, he was able to come and to do the he was able to come and to lighten up with the candles of the Chanuka to go against him. Now, the Pachim HaKtanim of Yaakov Avinu also shows humbleness. So he says, Bo ure kama nes Chanuka kashur be'emet to what it is, the entire miracle. It says, Vayivater Yaakov levada, right? Al pach shemen shel Chanuka. That's why he went back. Just like it says that Zekenim Bela Tosfot, right? That they say in Chulin, Shenishayer Pachim Ktanim levado l'shon bet abad. Okay? So it says, Yaakov Avinu ra'a az beruach kodsho et milchemet hayevanim b'chashmonaim. He saw already the war. That he wanted them to go with it. Therefore, he prepared for them the Pach HaShemen with Kiddushan Taharat Adat Shebe Yisrael. So he comes and he says, now we understand exactly that which he explained. Klipat Yavan is Ga'ava, Azut, V'chutzpah. The Greeks were haughties. They were haughty. Always with their nose up in the air, the body, we are the best. We're always, that was the Greeks. You look anything to do with whether it's in history, that's what they were. Yaakov Avinu Yisodov Shorsho Shlemut Achna. Yaakov Avinu was the exact opposite. As it says, Ma Shamru, Likru Tzadikei B'Shmecha, Yaakov HaKatan, Tichtiv, Mi Yakum Ki Katan Hu. Vayivater Yaakov Levado, Sheya B'nei Atzmo B'chinat Shiraim, he was like nothing. Vayivater, Mamash like nothing, Nishirim Nechalato, like a Shiraim. So therefore, that's why he comes and he says Shiflut. V'nuchal Elmoz Dvarim also, that's Pachim Ktanim is also showing on Shiflut. To be Mvatel the Azut. So he comes and he says, on page Yod,
what does it say in Zohar Kadosh?
Where are you exactly? Where he says, "B'vchina ma shamru liikru b'svego Yaakov HaKatan dichtiv mi yakum Yaakov HaKatan yivater l'sheni alachloto lemi shemesiv atzmo v'chen amru b'Zohar Kadosh let alma mitkaima." The world is going to be mitkayem only on inun davdei garmayu shiraim. They make themselves like shiraim, meaning the entire world is going to be fulfilled. The entire olam is mitkayem on somebody that he makes himself like nothing. Meaning the people, why lamivav tzadikim? Lamivav tzadikim, they have to be tzadikim that nobody knows about it. This tzadikim nistarim. Why nistarim? No kavod, no nothing. Completely the mamash. You don't even know. Yeah? So he comes and he says now on page Yod, he says the shemen sheyatzak Yaakov Avinu was the yisod la'avat Hashem yitbarach. Also. So he comes and he says, Matzati b'sefer HaKedah mikat Shmuel, in the name of the Shach, the entire concept that we just mentioned about the oil. Then he comes and he says, and look at Rabbeinu Bachyai. Rabbeinu Bachyai comes and he says, V'afta et Hashem l'koyecha b'chol v'chol 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 v'chodecha, in the bet over there. Vayem b'divrei Rabbeinu Bachyai. So it says, some people say, b'chol v'chol v'chol v'chodecha, Avraham and Yitzchak and Yaakov, b'chol v'chol Avraham Avinu. Right? Because it says he took his entire heart, to give him his entire heart to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Chol nafshecha, Yitzchak Avinu gave up his neshama. V'chol modecha, with all your properties, Yaakov Avinu. That he separated Maaser from everything, and even from his own children, because he made Levi Maaser. So he comes and he says, you see from here, Yaakov Avinu came b'shlemut, Avavtat Hashem l'checha b'chol nafshecha b'chol modecha. Dargato shel Yaakov Avinu b'chila b'chol modecha, with all your money. Just like it says b'chol modecha. So he says, v'chol asher titeh, whatever you're going to give me, I'm going to give you Maaser. So he says that which Yaakov Avinu came and he said, "V'chol asher titeh li aser aserenu lach," was bizman shenisech epach Hashem al haeven. When he came and he poured the oil on top of the stones. V'chol asher titeh li aser aserenu lach. So he's come and he says that the nisuch pach Hashem was, he says, the dargato shel Yaakov Avinu, which is ahavat Hashem bechol mo'odecha. Go to the next underline. And therefore the koach hanitzachon of Yavan was nityachev beoskei toratecha. Because when they come and they're learning the Torah, it means that you love Hashem. How do you love Hashem? By learning Torah. So that's why he comes and he says, and that's the shorish of Nes of the Pach Hashem. Hemid Yaakov et yesod le'am Yisrael avat Hashem, which is the yesod of the koach zachul kinyan shel Torah shebe'al peh. Because when you love something, you just go crazy, but you just continue going. That's how you're supposed to continue learning the Torah. So with this, we actually understand, right, the entire Gadlut. So therefore, if we're going to do a very, very quick summary, we just explained the connection between Yaakov and Yosef, that they're both the same. And therefore, we went and we said that just like the entire concept of Chanukah was parallel to Yaakov Avinu, Totu was parallel to Yosef Hatzadik, and just like because of Yaakov and Yosef, the same, which is the Kiddusha, that they were sanctity, that they were by themselves, they met. Yaakov Avinu went at the age of 84 and he said, this is not, it was Yosef Hatzadik, the Kiddusha, that it gave him the Dioknosh of, they were one Neshama, they were one entity. Everything that happened to Yaakov Avinu happened to Yosef. Yaakov was hated by his brother. Yosef was hated by his brothers. Yaakov wasn't by his parents for 22 years. He was by his parents for 22 years. Everything that happened, one by one, he was always pursued. It was always Yosef, was just like Yaakov Avinu. So therefore, Yaakov Avinu had this connection with them. He said, "Your children like my children. They're 100% like mine. They are like me. They are one entity." That's why he had to tell him, "Go bury me in Israel." Because if not, he would have left him by him. So what are we saying? Just like Yaakov Avinu was parallel to Hanukah, because it says Yaakov was fixing Gilui Rayot, which that was the Malchut of Yavan. The Greeks was everything of Gilui Rayot. So therefore, so too Yosef and Yaakov Avinu, they fixed Gilui Rayot. So too that's what was able to fix the concept of Yavan, and that's how we were able to actually overcome them through the Gilui Rayot. That's how they were able to the Kedusha. They were moser nefesh on the Torah and everything that they had. So that's what they were supposed to do. So again, this is all the same concept that we mentioned in order for us to actually continue growing. And Bezrat Hashem, hopefully we'll be able to illuminate ourselves throughout the entire Chanukah with the light of the Torah. Bezrat Hashem, a wonderful day.